Hello. Thought for the day, and I'm going to start with a reading from Philippians. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. That's Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 to 4. I like reading. Perhaps you like a good book, or do you prefer a film? Something I read the other day about that word, prefer, used it in a way that made me think. It was about soldiers in special units in Kosovo after the brutal war. They were tasked with rounding up some of the leaders of the army who had been involved in war crimes. Some of these people were embedded in their communities, and the teams had to move very quickly and work very much together as a team in order to quickly secure buildings at 2 or 3 different locations at the same time. The person writing about these teams used the word prefer, which basically means to put the safety of the rest of the team above you, to prefer the other person and put them first. Paul talks in the reading about putting others before ourselves. Jesus, the perfecter of our faith, gave everything for us. Being a follower of Christ is about self-sacrifice, giving something up for others. I talked a few weeks back about the Black Lives Matter movement, and I even attended an online Zoom meeting about our relationship with people of colour. I spoke about how things really need to change in our world and felt that it was a watershed moment. I now get a feeling that it's moving on to the back burner, mainly through quite a backlash in the press and the media, and a general unease about raising it, especially in the UK. Another book I'm reading at the moment is called White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. And it's really caused me to think and question even my own motives. The premise of the book is that those of us who are white live white privileged lives. We do, even though we don't always realise it, and we set that as the benchmark and judge all other standards by it. It's called, and this is painful to our ears, white supremacy. We don't like to think of ourselves in that way, and generally we think of it as a racist term. So any conversation that leads this way, we shut it down because it makes us feel uncomfortable. And yet, it is a fact that we, in so many ways, we do live privileged lives. Lives which can be so inaccessible to people of colour. Another thought is that we can look upon people of colour as though they need to aim to be like us, if we're not very careful, we can feel sorry for them because they're not like us. That's why we can't talk about it. We feel that we're just widening the gap. We need to have conversations about race in order to understand. I remember that one of the comments that I saw when the photograph of me taking the knee for Black Lives Matter on Facebook was, "I don't take the knee for anybody, only the Queen." You could put it another way and say, people I don't respect. If you think of others more highly than yourselves, as our reading says, by taking the knee you are showing them, or their cause, respect. Just as it can be to wash someone's feet. Not because you feel sorry for them or pity them, but you respect them as children of God. Do you see what I'm driving at? I belong to a generation which saw women as less than men. In fact, in my day, the wedding vows said by the woman were to love, honour and obey. I can remember saying to Jen, which used to drive her mad, without even thinking, whenever she made a statement, I would say, "Are you sure?" This comes from thinking I perhaps know better. And who can remember, "Don't worry your pretty little head"? These things happened. They really did. But we know better now. And I think, as painful as it may be, we need these conversations about race in order to understand and for things to change for the better. Now, our churches are no different from the world in having issues about hierarchy, who's more important, etc. But you know, in order to share the good news of God's kingdom with a broken, hurting world, we need to, as Paul writes in Romans 12, verse 10, be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. That's irrespective of colour, creed, gender, or anything else. Lockdown has revealed to us things which we need to hold close in our church fellowships, and those things we need to let go of. As we wrestle with the shape and future of our church and all things related to it, Paul reminds us one thing that we need to hold close through everything is our devotion for each other. The words we say together in our communion service remind us, as the bread is broken, though we are many, we are one body, because we all share in one bread. Jen will now lead us in prayer.